A blood-sucking monster. A nightmare invading. A terror under the waves. The extinction of species. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Hello my fellow hunters and welcome today as we talk the blood-eating wyvern, Baruragaru. This is, where do I begin? He is honestly in contention for just most purely terrifying monster, definitely creepiest and 100% the goriest. He is all about blood. Literally, he can fire a beam of it. So yeah, that's a thing. So what is going on here? Well, he is a leviathan and an invasive one at that. His discovery was the answer to a mystery. That mystery was why the local populations of Genprey, of Ioprey, and of Velociprey, and their drones were radically dropping. In fact, hunters reported finding fields of them dead, littered. And the eerie thing is that every single one of them was drained of blood. Every single drop. Lifeless husks in the truest of sense. But the culprit was not discovered until one brave guild scout had a very, very close encounter. Why they appeared, though, is still quite the mystery. All that's known is that they did. A leading theory is that captured individuals were being transported before wreckage at sea freed them back into the ocean. They then made for the nearest shoreline, which had them appearing in the water-filled areas of deserts, marshlands, and jungles, which are full of various types of prey. Literal prey. And then it started its gluttonous rampage. You see, a quirk of Mr. Baruragaru over here. By the way, every time I say this monster's name, I feel like I've seen something really impressive, like, ooh, but also I'm being tickled at the same time. So it's like, Baruragaru! This monster has quite the little, let's say, quirk in that it doesn't just feed to satiate itself, not just as a basic nutritious necessity. No, it will feed in self-defense. That's because it's actually quite the fearful creature. It is at its strongest when it is freshly gorged on that ichor of life, and it is at its weakest, well, when it is parched. Yeah, this guy plays by vampire rules, and that's pretty cool. So he will go to extreme lengths to... I can't do a vampire voice. He will go to extreme lengths to make sure that he is always fully armed, which kind of involves decimating entire populations of local fauna in order to be well armed on that sweet, sweet red sticky stuff. So, hunting was a go against Baruragaru in order to preserve, well, the ecosystem itself, an important role of every hunter. So battle was joined, and the quirks of this cavern crawler were eked out. He is a very powerful leviathan in terms of his physicality. He's not fragile, he is not the lithest, he has forelimbs that have the strength to dig as well as swim. He has tiny little tentacle-like hairs covering his entire body to retain a layer of moisture, but also to increase his grip and power, which again is very, very freaky. Honestly, look, let's focus on the word freaky. Look at this goddamn face. A lot of the time, I do have, I think, fair criticism of Frontier's designs. And on the surface, looking at this guy, it's like, no, yeah, he looks awful. It's like ugly. He's not a cool-looking monster, really. But that's the whole point, isn't it? He's supposed to be, well, unnerving. You're supposed to feel a big wave of, oh, it's awful. It looks just awful. And it does. It looks awful. But that awfulness, in this case, is awesome because it really sells him. So our friend here is uniquely, incredibly good at processing foreign substances in his body. So essentially, he is one of the few monsters who is all but immune to every single status effect. You inject him with poison, and he will break it down, render it useless in a matter of moments, which would imply that careful study of the physiology of this creature would lead to incredible breakthroughs in medicine in the world of Monster Hunter. If you can recreate whatever he does to so effectively render deadly substances inert, you could arm hunters of a whole other level of medical supplies in the field. The issue is, on death, the Baruragaru's special organs deteriorate rapidly, breaking down and rotting away. Extraction and preservation because of this is near impossible. Frustratingly so, at least to the guild. And it can go beyond that too, but before we get ahead of ourselves, this is a particularly potent water sac at its base. Various monsters have the flame sacs, thunder sacs, the way they generate their elemental onslaught. Well, as a natural water-swimming leviathan, his water sac is, well, a water sac as you might imagine, but it's incredibly larger and more potent and, well, more adaptable than, well, nearly every single other one. It will first give him access to water attacks when filled with water, when he has had a recent swim, when his body is shining with its layer of mucus it uses to keep itself moist and wet. So that's fun. And he will fire out the usual beams, but also he can do a wave of globs all around him, resulting in puddles on the floor. And you might be like, well, why does that matter? It's water, right? Well, the thing is, he can turn the water just that little bit acidic by combining it with chemicals he naturally produces, melting armor, and basically giving you a really bad rash that you really don't want. But this is just the beginning. This is the least of what you might face when you go up against him. Remember the decimated, bloodless populations of prey? Well, let's talk about his most significant feature. The long, tubular tongue that, while being incredibly vulnerable, is an incredibly potent weapon. Physically, it can flail round in all directions, lightning quick, slapping and slicing as it darts through the air, knocking all away around him. But that's not its primary function. No, its primary function is to lash on and suck, drain, consume. Oh yes, his tongue then acts like a big old flesh straw. And how often do you get to say the words flesh straw? I'm so lucky. It will latch on to its victims. Essentially, imagine if the end of his tongue was kind of like a lamprey eel. And once latched, it's not coming off. And you will feel yourself growing weaker and weaker and weaker until the black spots coat your vision, and then darkness falls, never to lift again, as you become, well, as I said earlier, a true lifeless husk. This thing is, oh yeah, it's nasty. The force of which it does this draining is ridiculous, slurping something dry in a matter of moments. It will do it mid-combat. So those Iodromes, Gendromes, and Velocidromes, yeah, if they have the unlucky misfortune to bump into your fight, they will get caught and used as light refreshment. Oh, and so will you! In fact, this was the first monster to come with grapples and grabs in Frontier, and he has plenty of them that result in your hunter downed and being literally fed upon from this tongue, as your screen splatters with blood, and you just have to witness the utter horror of what is happening to you, as you yourself are used to power up, well, your opponent. See, great Jagras can pin you and feed on you and then his belly grows. The implication of that is also a bit weird, but for some reason that just doesn't register, whereas being literally blood-drinked mid-fight is... what the hell? Oh! Once this blood has been ingested, well then, that organ I was talking about can get to work. It will filter out any impurities, and then it will convert the iodrome's poison fluid. It will render it inert, understand it, absorb it, and weaponize it. Its water sac now taking on a poison twist. It will do this just the same with a Gendrome's paralytic mixture. It will do it just the same with a Velocidrome's potent blood. And then it will modify its attacks based on this new injection of power. And you can tell what is currently being used by carefully observing the creature. The very sides of it will glow and change hue to match its current meal. Purple, of course, for the poison, a deeper, darker red for the pure blood, and a more orangey yellow for the paralysis. In every case, it can fire out beams of the stuff: poison, paralysis, blood. You know, the classic trio. He can fire out blobs of them in all direction, leaving very, very hazardous pools all around him, like liquid mines, and he can fire them all out as an expelled fog as mist. Yes, this creature can cover the entire area in blood mist. Like, just think about that. Like, that's... oh my god. Anyway... yeah, that's Mr. Blood Wyvern. He has a lovely diet of, well, the drone monsters. Will take in their blood, mix it with his own, convert it in his potent water sac organ, and use them as weapons. He will slaughter entire populations to make sure his supplies are always maintained, and he will do everything in his power to make you the next item on the menu. In fact, just getting a sample of this guy's blood is near impossible because it is so mixed, tainted, and mingled with all of his victims. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly, and he is genuinely one of the monsters I would like to see in the main series just because of what they could do with this concept. How many different monsters could they have him feed on? How many different effects could he gain? How many ways could you twist this? Imagine subspecies of variations. Imagine him being represented in the level of fidelity and ecology that World and Iceborne has its monsters in. Just observing him would be, well, fascinating. It'd be grim, but it also would be fascinating. I really would enjoy getting whipped by his flesh straw. And again, how often do you get to say that? He is an incredibly aggressive monster. He feels the only safe when nothing around him is alive, and he will go to great lengths to make it that way. Hell, even his tail acts as a syringe that he can stab and inject the various mixes of toxins that he's currently working with. It's really quite brutal. And I do like that he is more of a land leviathan, kind of like Mizutsune. He's not supposed to be fought in water. He can travel and exist in its shore, but he has the more powerful limbs of a ground-based leviathan, which I do generally want to see increase in number, just as a way to preserve the leviathan-type monster more than anything if we don't get underwater back. But also, this guy underwater would be an experience. Imagine that tongue coming out of nowhere and grabbing you, and that's the first thing you know about it while underwater. That will keep you awake at night. When he does have his Velocidrome meal and he is, well, super blood pumped, He will lower your sharpness when he hits you. He'll corrode away gunner ammo. So that's something that could be really fun to play with as well. I love monsters that mess with your resources in that manner. In any case, I think he is incredibly unique. He's incredibly fascinating, incredibly grim, but he could be made into something wonderful with very minimal changes, and is definitely one of the few that I would love to see saved and in some way converted to the main Monster Hunter series. So that is your vampire blood wyvern that can use, well, his enemy's greatest weapons against them. Let me know what you guys think. Like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe for more. Please consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.